You may have heard the phrase that the only thing more powerful than money is the promise of it. And in my experience, the sentiment tends to hold up. Folks can often convince themselves that an investment can't miss or that the real risks of their portfolio are overstated. The reality is that everyone approaches investing in their own unique way, and the education system has failed all of us on personal finance. In this video, we're going to cover 4 of the reasons your portfolio might stink and what you can do about it. Hey everybody, I'm Curtis Crossland of Subtle Crossland Wealth Advisors, and I help folks build more tax-efficient retirements. So let's get into it. The first thing to note when it comes to any investments is that there simply are no guarantees. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. The other hard reality to learn sooner rather than later is that no one is Nostradamus when it comes to picking winners and losers. Just take a look at this SPIVA scorecard. It highlights that in a 15-year stretch, only 12.02% of active large cap fund managers have outperformed the S&P 500. Think of it this way, you actually have a higher probability of guessing which number is going to come up next on a dice roll. At least there you have a 1 in 6 or just over 16% chance of getting it right. And to prove a point, let's give it a try. I'll roll a dice and I'll give you a few seconds to pick a number between 1 and 6. Here we go. And just for fun, if you guess wrong, you have to subscribe to the channel. That seems fair to me. And remember, folks, we're on the honor system. You have your number picked? Great, because here it comes, and we rolled a 6. So remember, if you guessed wrong, subscribe. Even if you guessed right, go ahead and subscribe. Why not? And feel free to let me know if you guessed it right or wrong. And with that, we'll dive into our list. So the first sign that your portfolio might stink is because you have something called naive diversification. This also goes by the moniker 1/n diversification. Shlomo Bernartzi and Richard H. Thaler, 2 prominent figures in behavioral finance, discuss this on the basis of defined contribution plans. They describe that some investors follow the 1/n strategy. They divide their contributions evenly across the funds offered in the plan. Consistent with this naive notion of diversification, they find that the proportion invested in stocks depends strongly on the proportion of stock funds in the plan. And personally, I do tend to see this the most in 401k type plans where options are limited, but you'll see it as well in non-retirement accounts. The idea of missing out can cause some folks to just simply go down a list of available funds and include anything that catches their eye. Have you ever been at a buffet line and you just simply picked one of everything? It's kind of like that, but for investing. And I can assure you the shellfish was not just flown in this morning. Instead of analyzing risks and the ability of funds to meet goals, some buy into everything and just hope for the best. This can lead to a lot of overlap, unnecessary exposure, and inefficient diversification. Understanding what signs to look out for in your own portfolio is important. The second sign your portfolio might stink is if you have identical asset allocations across all account types. This can occur when you have a target allocation, say something like a 50-50 stock to bond, and you end up mirroring this across all of your accounts, regardless of if it's a Roth IRA, a traditional IRA, or a non-retirement account. This isn't an unforgivable sin if you need to have, say, 100% of stock or 100% of bonds, but if your situation calls for something in between, identical allocation across all your account types can really start to hurt your tax efficiency. And I've said this in other videos, but it bears repeating. The more you pay in taxes, the less you get to keep. And losing investment dollars to tax via this tax drag can have a compounding effect. So the bigger your account values, the more it will hurt you over time. Understanding and utilizing proper asset location across account types is the answer to identical allocation. Vanguard has a white paper on this subject. If you really want to get into the weeds in it, I'll go ahead and link it in the description. And I've done a video with an example of a retiree's need to tax plan. This highlights how taxes can affect your financial picture in retirement. I'll go ahead and put a link to that video as well. The third sign your portfolio might stink is also tax related. Having active funds or running active strategies and non-retirement accounts can also increase tax drag. And regardless of how you feel about active versus passive strategies, I'd hope by now that we can all agree that tax efficiency matters. If you're set on having active funds or running active strategies, doing that in things like traditional IRAs or Roth IRAs can help to mitigate tax drag. Doing it in non-retirement accounts invites the potential for more tax, and I promise I'm only going to say it one more time in this video, but tax drag compounds over time. Time is the most valuable resource for all of us, and the most impactful years of compounding occur the further out that we go. Added costs from things like tax also means that you have to outperform even more to make up the net after-tax return difference. And tax costs can escalate if you misjudge or ignore investment income running your active strategies. Remember, missing credits, triggering things like Medicare's IRMA, or getting hit with that extra 3.8% surtax on net investment income tax are added costs, and it's very easy to forget about them until you file your tax return. The fourth and final sign that your portfolio might stink is something that I call fake diversification. This is where you have multiple investments or funds in your portfolio, but they're all essentially just another version of the same thing. Having 5 different S&P 500 funds doesn't mean you have 5 times the diversification. And for someone trying to diversify, this phenomenon can lull you into a false sense of security, and you may underestimate the risks your portfolio actually has. You can also see this when someone tries to diversify across companies. Having multiple accounts at various brokerage firms can also give you a false sense of diversification if the investments are still largely the same. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely investors that want to have very specific exposures or a narrower risk by design. But for everyday investors that are just busting their hump and trying to save for retirement, this can be all too commonplace. It's important to remember that just because you have a lot of funds or a lot of ETFs doesn't mean you've necessarily done enough to reduce your unsystematic risk. This is the risk that can be diversified away with proper allocation and exposures. So understanding your underlying risks and exposures is going to be important in helping you build a more diversified and efficient portfolio. So that leads us to what you can actually do about it. Well, the obvious answer is education, but even then that can be pretty daunting. Where do you start? It's a big industry with a lot of history and a lot of dueling opinions on what is actually in the best interest of investors. For someone like me, I had a natural curiosity and inclination towards finance, so it was very easy for me to stay interested. I spent the better part of 5 years studying and passing exams so I could get things like my Certified Financial Planner designation and my Chartered Financial Analyst designation. But for novices, something like the Little Book of Common Sense Investing by John Bogle or other books like it can be an easy enough starting point in your education. I'd encourage everyone to stay curious and just try to learn as much as you can on these topics because, like it or not, you have to engage with your finances. You may as well know something about them. Diversification came up a lot in this video, and some of the other things that you can do about that include ensuring that your portfolio properly reflects your goals, risks, and time horizon. And when it comes to further aspects of diversification and tax efficiency, using asset location principles and using something closer to a modern mean variance optimized portfolio can be big helps. Some of this can get very complicated, but if you are dead set on being the captain of your own financial ship, then it's incumbent upon you to learn these things, and we're really just scratching the surface. And for those individuals that really just don't have the time, the desire, or the expertise to do this on your own, then finding the right advisor, planner, or money manager that you trust should probably start moving up your to-do list. The bottom line is that investing isn't always a walk in the park. Goals, time, comfortability with risk, all of these things matter when it comes to having a portfolio that works towards your best interest. And keep in mind that when dealing with such a critical part of your life, you really want to try to align yourself with the best odds of success, especially when you're dealing with something that isn't guaranteed. Once more, I'm Curtis Crossland, and if you want to see how we help folks build more tax-focused and efficient portfolios, be sure to check us out at subtlecrossland.com and subscribe for future videos.